Today we will be discussing how to run the monthly process. In Jackalope, you'll go to Data Operations, Monthly, and the Monthly Summary. And you'll first begin by indicating which month you would like to process. If I wanted to see about running February 2018 and hit OK, I'll first get a message saying that monthly has not been run for February 2018. And if I press Go, then the monthly process will start. In this case, if I hit Go and Jackalope cannot find any data for February, I would be given the message no daily data could be found. But in this case, there is February daily data for a total of 53 sites, and monthly is off and running. While monthly is running, no daily data batches will run. They have to wait until monthly is finished running. So you may see that you have daily data batches that are in submitted state and haven't been picked up or completed because monthly is running. So initially, when you submit the monthly submittal here, you'll see that we are on the February 2018 monthly screen. It indicates there's 53 sites that will be part of this list at this time. January 2018 had not been run, so this grid cannot be completed, giving you a comparison to growth from last month and etc., because last month had not been run through Jackalope yet. When you first submit the monthly, you will see a status bar, which may or may not be kept on your screen based on your firewall and refreshing screens and things like that. So you may only see it initially, but then that goes away, which is not an indication that monthly is not running. It's just a status bar that you can watch running along if you don't happen to get disconnected from your initial attempt at running monthly. Initially, you will also see all of the sites that are part of this 53 here, and they are going to sit in the unsubmitted state until Jackalope picks them up and runs them. In this case, you can see right away, one site had already been run by the time my screen refreshed. It's important not to be mistaken and go checking these and saying resubmit these, because in fact, monthly is running in the background. You just cannot see these sites updated quite yet. So just be careful that when you submit a monthly to run and you say, yes, go run monthly, that you don't come to this screen, see these in the unsubmitted state, and think that you have to go checkbox them and say submit them. Just know that monthly is running and you'll have to wait for it to finish and be updated to your screen. As monthly runs, you can click the refresh button down here at the bottom. And if any other sites had been processed, you would be able to get those refreshed to your screen. You can see here's a couple more. You can sort these grids in the same way that you could have sorted other grids. And so if you want to see only by status which ones have been processed so far, you can do that. And again, we know that monthly is running in the background. So if I were to click refresh again, it's likely that maybe one or two more sites has completed the monthly processing, and you'll see them in the screen here. In reviewing some of these columns here, if there are any errors associated with data, which I'll show you in a moment, you'll see the filter error column filled out indicating what the issue was. You'll see in this case we had class and volume data. Down here, you see we just had volume data. So this will be an indication of which data types were included in the monthly processing. Because monthly had been run for February 2017, you can see a % change since last year filling out here, although we don't have a % change from last month because I didn't run January monthly for 2018 prior to doing this demonstration. And you can see here the MADT. Again, you can sort by any of these columns if you'd like to. And as a reminder, you can also go down here to the column chooser and add or remove or reorder the way your columns are visible. I personally like to add the last updated column so that I know the last time I ran monthly. I can keep track of if I do purges and need to reprocess sites after purging suspect days of bad data, I'll know, oh, let's see, I did my purge last week, but I can see I haven't run monthly on that site again since I did the purge. So that's a field that I like to have there, as well as days used and these sorts of things. If you want to sort these in a different way, you can always move these columns around and click OK. And my grid will now be resorted in this fashion. And if I show you a monthly status screen for a prior month that had been run, I can give you an example of some of the other things you'll see on this screen. Here is the monthly submittal from December of 2017. In this case, you can see that a little bit more of this has been filled out. There were 290 sites this month. There were 289 last month. Total sites last year is 263. And then you'll see growth percent from last month and growth percent from last year. And these are only populated based on monthly being run in Jackalope for each month. So it's actually taking this MADT, comparing it to the December MADT from 2016, and then it's giving you a percent change from those. In cases where a site was not counted last year, then you can see there isn't a percent change from last year because that site wasn't counted last year. So this number here will be a cumulative percent change from an entire column here, but individually by site you can see changes. Perhaps you want to sort your grid based on percent change and see which ones might be changing too much, and those might be ones that you want to double check. If I sort after running monthly by the filter error or even by status, we can do by status, let's do that. You can see that in this case we had quite a bit of good data. For some reason some of these got unsubmitted, and I can show you how those can be brought to the screen in a bit. Now, back to explaining filter errors, after monthly has finished running, you can either sort by status column or the filter error to get the problem sites up to the top for you to work on. In the case that there's a filter error, then you can hover and see what the error itself was. So in this case, it appears that the volume and the MADT were in good order with 31 days of data, but the class had an issue, and that all of the class data failed QC checks. So the class was not used in the monthly processing. In this case, there was not enough volume data to create an MADT based on the rules you have set for the number of days required to create an MADT. And so you can see various errors here, and by hovering or by giving yourself a bit more room here, you can see what exactly are the issues with each and address those individually. Another option you have within the monthly screen here is double-clicking on any of the lines here to get an option of which reports would be available. So if I double-click here on my first line, I get an option of monthly reports from this screen. Rather than having to go to the reporting and report engine menu item, I can do that from here. So let's imagine I want to create the monthly calendar report for just this site. That's what I elected to do. I'm waiting. You can see the message down here. I'm waiting for that report to be generated. And I've just now received to my screen the monthly calendar report that I asked for, which is here. Now, if we go down to the bottom of the monthly grid, there are a few other things to be aware of. Resubmit, and if you hover, you'll see indications of what each of these mean for your reference. But resubmit means that any site checkboxed in the list will be resubmitted. So this is a good way that you can just go and select a handful of sites that you want to resubmit for whatever reason, and you would click resubmit here. And in this case, only these sets of sites will be resubmitted. If you click resubmit all, Jackalope will completely clear out all statistics for this month, and then it will recompute all statistics for this month for each site. If you have an MADT that you don't like and you'd like to plug over it, you have the plug option here. And if you have a site with data for, let's say in this case, we're looking at December of 2017. Let's say you're reviewing this monthly and you notice that there were a handful of sites that didn't make it into this first run of monthly. You end up finding those data files, you run them through the daily data processing. You have your whole December month for your new site that never made it in the first time, and you'll see that that site doesn't show up in this list. In order to bring it to this list, you'll click Refresh from Site, and Jackalope will go into the database and find any sites that have daily data which didn't have daily data when you first ran this monthly. So this is a good way to bring the sites into this screen. They will appear in the screen as unsubmitted, and then at that time you could checkbox it and just resubmit the previously unsubmitted sites. We already talked about the refresh button down here, and the other button is settings. This is going to give you an idea of some of the statistics calculation settings. In this case, we're showing a few things. What day and time the weekdays start and end, the weekends start and end, the number of days required for an MADW, and the number of MADW days to create an AADW. Obviously, we're not dealing with annual statistics in this particular screen, but this button here, this settings button, will take you to the place where statistic creation rules live. And if you found that the number of days for an MADW was set to 35, then you would know that that wouldn't make sense. There aren't 35 days within a month. So this would be something that you could note here. Typically, these calculation settings are done when Jackalope is first set up for a database, but it's always important that you note this can be referred to if you have any questions as to what the requirements are, and refresh your memory. So we'll hit close here. If you wanted to make any changes to those, you can do it within that screen. Let's say you want to change your threshold for the number of days required to something other than 1, and then you can rerun monthly, and the new settings will be used in creating those monthly statistics.